It's time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Sun's sports reporter Jack Rosser and ESPN's senior writer Mark Ogden. Hi guys, welcome to you both, with you shortly. First of all, let's run through those back pages. And we start with the Sun. Most of the back pages, indeed, leading with Alexander Isak, and the Sun's headline reads, 110 million not enough. Alex wants Kop to make a bigger bid. As for The Guardian, they splashed with the second day of the fifth test between England and India. The headline, testy, needle at the Oval, as England and India set up another nail-biter. They also carry the Liverpool bid being rejected for Isak. Onto the Telegraph, Liverpool's Isak bid rejected, the lead on their sports section, and they also have the Cricket 2 War of Words, the headline. Onto the Times, game on is the headline. Siraj inspires India fight back as 15 wickets fall on tempestuous day at the Oval. We will discuss that. And to the Mirror, tune turn on Isak. Also there on the back page, Itoje, best is yet to come. And Techi match special is the headline on the cricket. First of all, let's start with Jack's paper, The Sun, and Alexander Isak. And Jack, as far as the headline is concerned here, if Newcastle are going to be tempted to sell Alexander Isak, they want a significantly higher bid from Liverpool.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I think, for a long time now we've been expecting this bid from Liverpool to come, and they've known what the price would be. It seems to have shifted a bit today from 120 up to 150, but knowing that position and the spending power they have and what it's going to take to get a player like Alexander Isak out of Newcastle, given Eddie Howe's stance, given the owner's stance that he's absolutely not for sale anywhere, it's a bit bizarre to go in below that. Obviously, they're going to try and negotiate the best deal for themselves, but it seems fairly clear what it's going to take to get him out of there. It sounds like that, Liverpool are pushing out the narrative or telling people that they're not going to maybe try again and go back and try and get higher. But I can't believe that after so long, this one's over quite so quickly. They've made sort of tentative inquiries before. Isak is obviously incredibly keen to make the move himself and cause a lot of upheaval at Newcastle through that. We've seen the fans there, making how their feelings clear on it. So I struggle to believe that Liverpool won't test them again. I think this has been the worry from within Newcastle all summer, that regardless of their stance, Liverpool would come in and really try and test it. And 110 million, I think everyone knew was never going to do that, but it remains to be seen where they'll go and quite what might break Liverpool's resolve as well.
Mark, people now discussing what Liverpool do from here. Some even possibly suggesting they could walk away from this if the deal isn't right. But surely now they're at the table with this offer, they're going to come back in with another bid, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's the most likely outcome. They might walk away eventually if they can't find a figure that suits them in Newcastle, but I just don't see how they would make a bid and then basically give up within a couple of hours of it being rejected. So there's obviously more scope for this deal to be done. And let's not forget that when Liverpool signed Florian Wirtz from Bayer Leverkusen, it started fairly low. It went higher again, until they paid I think a British record £116.5 million for Wirtz. So I think, from the very basic point, Newcastle would expect Liverpool to break that British record again for Alexander Isak. I'd imagine that they'd say, look, he's Premier League proven, he's a guy in the peak of his career, scores goals, he is worth more than Florian Wirtz. And I guess you couldn't really argue with that, considering that, Isak is, I think, probably second on to Mo Salah last season in the Premier League scoring chart. So he really is the guy that can deliver what Liverpool want. So I think they'll go back in. I think this is all a bit of a game that's being played. A couple of weeks ago, they had an expression of interest, which was not backed by Newcastle. Now they put a bid in. Both clubs will know there's a figure out there that will probably trigger the deal. Newcastle are saying at the moment they don't want to sell. Liverpool are suggesting they won't bid again. But if that's the case, we'll always go away and start again and look at something else. But that's not the case. There's more to this, and Alexander Isak has not said anything yet. And his silence for me is the key to it. If he wanted to stay at Newcastle, he'd come out and say it. He doesn't. He's gone to Real Sociedad to train his old club. So suggests to me that he knows that Liverpool will play the long game. The big thing in this is that Liverpool play Newcastle at St James's Park, I think, on the 25th of August, second week of the season. So There may be a case where Newcastle don't want anything done before that, but it will rumble on this, and I think by the end of the window, Isak will be a Liverpool player.
Jack, a number of papers covering this story, as you would imagine, including the Telegraph. Liverpool's Isak bid rejected, and on part of their sub-headline, "We're not going to be bullied into selling, say Newcastle," is what the Telegraph have to say on this. Interesting line, that, because do you see it as Newcastle holding quite a bit of power in all of this because Isak has 3 years left on his contract? Or perhaps you see it differently, where the player's unhappy, he's training alone. From all the reports we're hearing, he wants this move. Where do you see the balance of power here?
I think it's definitely more with Isak. Newcastle obviously have an incredible amount of power in that he's their player, he's contracted. They're not absolutely desperate for cash, even though this would be incredible money even for a club owned by the PIF. But Isak has obviously expressed how unhappy he is. As Mark said, he's away training at Real Sociedad on his own. That's quite an extreme thing to move to do, to not go on tour. He got sent home from Scotland, and while there was talk of that being to protect him, then it only always points to one thing when that sort of thing happens. And Eddie Howe has always been a good man manager, has managed to lift players up to higher levels, and has done an incredible job in terms of settling Alexander Isak in the Premier League, getting him from training away from Newcastle, away from England, in another country, not part of their pre-season tour, and denying him a move like this to get him back on side, get him happy and playing again at St James's Park, especially when we've got all the reporting around the long-running unhappiness over his contract situation dating back to last summer, and Newcastle not really willing or able within their pay structure to pay what is, everyone would sort of feel, fair market value for Alexander Isak, looking at north of 250 to up to 300,000 pounds a week, which is, of course, an awful lot of money. But you look around the Premier League and players delivering like that is their level, and he will be able to earn that elsewhere. So pulling all that together, getting him back on side will be an incredibly hard thing to do if Newcastle really, really do dig their heels in. But as Mark said, as we said before, I think Liverpool will come back, and I agree with him. I think by the end of the window, he will be playing at Anfield.
Mark, I want to take you to the back of the Star on this story. They focus on the supporters. Toon fans turn on Isak as Liverpool offer £110 million. And the team on the transfer show were talking about this earlier as well, as to whether Newcastle have a bit of a problem here. Do you think they do have a problem as far as the Isak situation is concerned? And if so, how significant is it?
Well, I mean, that isn't helping the situation from Newcastle's perspective. If they think they can keep Isak, if the fans turn against him, then the fans are basically driving him away, because if they're turning on him and calling him a rat and things like that, then that isn't going to help Alexander Isak change his mind. So it is causing a problem. I think they will have a chance or a hope of keeping him, because there are a couple of examples of players that have really pushed hard to get out of their club in the summer and not been able to do it. Harry Kane at Tottenham, when Man City were keen to sign him 3 or 4 years ago, didn't happen. Spurs kept him for the season. And Luis Suarez was, quite keen to go to Arsenal in 2013, and Liverpool said, "You're not going, we're going to keep you." And he stayed. So big clubs can keep their best players, but it's very rare. And I think when the fans turn against a player who has been their fans' favourite, it makes it even harder for the club to keep that player at the club. So I think the Newcastle fans, if they want Isak to stay, they probably need to rein it in a bit and just hope that he can be persuaded to stay. But if they've given up on him, they've given up on him. But this is what happens in football. Players leave, they go to bigger clubs, they want more success, they want more wages. It happens all the time. Newcastle got Isak from Real Sociedad. They're a big club than Sociedad. It happens, So unfortunately, Newcastle are the victim in this situation, but it does look like their best player is going to leave. And what they need to do now is try and make it happen quickly so they can replace him, because that is another problem that Newcastle face. They're struggling to get players in. The longer they leave this, if they leave it to the last week of the window, it's going to be even harder to get players in, because they've already missed out on so many big targets this summer.
Yeah, interesting point.
One thing I'd just add on the whole situation with the fans is that, like Mark said, this is the reality of football, and Newcastle are almost doing it themselves to Brentford. Johan Wissa isn't training with the group and doesn't look happy or settled because Newcastle are trying to buy him. So fans are always going to be unhappy when their biggest players leave, but it stinks of entitlement, really, because they're doing it to clubs further down the food chain.
Yeah, interesting times as the transfer window continues. Jack, let's stay with you and move on and talk about Manchester United now, inside the sports section of the Telegraph, their headline, Amorim's culture change unites squad behind cause. I just wonder, Jack, are you seeing a bit of a culture change at United under Ruben Amorim? And if so, in what kind of way?
It's a difficult one. I mean, the players have been coming out from their tour in America talking about it and definitely hitting the right notes in terms of, I think Luke Shaw was speaking about certain egos that had left the club and everything's pulling together. I think it's very easy to all be happy and together when you're playing a pre-season tour, a Premier League summer series in the United States, and there'd be a nice vibe around the hotel and a couple of new faces have arrived. If they don't win their first few games, it will very quickly go back to being the Manchester United that everyone who isn't a Manchester United fan knows and loves, really. It'll all ramp back up again and there'll be talk of probably division here and there. So that he may well have really got into them his first pre-season and got a lot of players on side, but that really has to be tested in the Premier League under that sort of spotlight. If things aren't going well, that's when togetherness is really tested, and we obviously haven't had a chance to see any of that just yet.
Mark, let's go back to The Sun. They have a headline there on Bruno Fernandes, Bruno's booster for United. Obviously, Fernandes staying, that was a bit of talk going on in the summer over what would happen with him, with big money interest from Saudi Arabia. I just wonder, though, yes, United fans are going to be feeling good about the arrivals of Matheus Cunha and Bryan Mbeumo, but is now the biggest challenge for Ruben Amorim what to do with the players who remain on the sidelines, remain out of his first team plans, and how to try and move them on before the end of this window?
Yeah, I mean, we know there are 4 more players there. I mean, obviously Marcus Rashford has left, he's gone to Barcelona, and United did really well to get that deal done. They've got Barcelona paying his wages. I mean, if they can find a similar deal for the likes of Anthony, Sancho, Malacia and Garnacho, then that would be great. But that is the next challenge, because they do want to bring in Benjamin Sesko from Leipzig, and I think they can do that whether they let players go or not. But it would help if they can get more players out the door. But they've not been, overdone by interest in the likes of Garnacho and Anthony so far, so it's going to be hard. But, to be fair to Amorim, that isn't his job now. His job is to say to the likes of Jason Wilcox, the sporting director, and Christopher Vivell, his deputy, get these players out of the club. I've made my decision, move them on. And all the talk of a happy camp in Chicago is probably because there's certain players that are no longer there that are not perceived by their teammates to be letting them down or not delivering as they should do. So, but I read James Ducker's piece in the Telegraph about the situation right now in Chicago. It's a really good piece, but James makes a very valid point that we've been here before with United. Every summer seems to have this same message being delivered. It's great. We had a bad season last year. We'll come back again this year. The proof is in the pudding at the start of the season. If they win all their pre-season games but lose to Arsenal on the opening game of the season, we're back to square one. But, they have won a couple of games. It's promising, but let's just give it a bit of time to see how they progress when the season starts. OK, same paper, different story for you, Jack, as we talk about Tottenham. Spurs beef up midfield with Paulinho loan move. João Paulinho on his way to Spurs from Bayern Munich. Do you see this as a good move for Spurs and a real opportunity to add some leadership to their midfield?
I think it's a sensible deal. It's one that, Paulinho is obviously someone that we're all familiar with in the Premier League. He was such a impressive and important player at Fulham, which drew the interest from Bayern Munich. He's obviously gone there and struggled. I think he started only 6 Bundesliga games last year, struggled with injury a bit, but obviously didn't win over Vincent Kompany and anyone in Germany. Otherwise, he wouldn't be moving on again quite so quickly. He's someone that is getting towards the end of his career, but it sounds like he's someone that Thomas Frank really wanted. So Tottenham have gone out and backed their new manager. They've done that with Kudus as well, who's an exciting signing for them. They do need some more leadership. I think the way we saw games come and go, the way we saw them go on streaky runs and collapsing last season under Ange Postecoglou, that wouldn't all have been down to the way he wanted to play football. They showed in the Europa League that when they needed to stick together and stick to a plan, they could do it, but not on a consistent level. So they do need a bit of that. The added bonus, obviously, is that he comes in proven in the Premier League, although I don't remember an awful lot of interest around him at the top 6 clubs when he was moving on from Fulham. So whether he's tested quite at that level in the Premier League to be a regular feature there with Tottenham's ambitions, we don't know. But he's certainly a very good addition ahead of a season where they're going to need more legs in midfield. They're going to need more options in midfield with so many games going back into the Champions League.
Mark, do you see this Paulinho move as a way of Thomas Frank putting his stamp on his new Tottenham team?
Well, I mean, Paulini is a good Premier League player, so he will make Tottenham better. But there's already a bit of unrest. You can see it doing the rounds with Tottenham fans, that they're seeing their big six rivals are all making big moves in the market. Even Man United, who finished in the same kind of bottom end of the table last year, have spent big on a couple of forwards. So Spurs fans are a bit frustrated. They see Morgan Gibbs-White stay at Forest. So I don't think Paulini is a player that Thomas Frank would have wanted from the outset, but he's a good player, and he's a player that will help Tottenham be whatever they want to be. But let's not forget they finished 17th last season. There's a long way to go before they can compete for the top six again. So they need more players in, and I think that Paulinho has to be the start of it, not just the end of it. But he's a good player. He will make them better.
Mark, Jack, thanks very much indeed for now. Back with you very shortly. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll look at more of these sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in The Guardian. Testy needle at the Oval as England and India set up another nail-biter. Senior writer Mark Ogden. Mark, let's begin with you and go to The Guardian, talk cricket. Main picture there focuses on this fifth and final test match between England and India. The headline, Testy, needle at the Oval as England and India set up another nail biter. It's interesting this, isn't it? Because we saw some needle at the back end of the fourth test as the match was heading for a draw. And as The Guardian allude to here, some exchange of words in this fifth and final test too. Do you like this? Do you sort of see it as competitive spirit in the right manner, or can it go too far?
I think it's great, to be honest. I think we had a bit off the pitch before the start of this test as well with the groundsman, didn't we? So it's been bubbling away, and I think it's a bit like an Ashes test series, this, where there's obviously a lot of sledging and bad blood. And I know that obviously it goes against the grain in terms of the traditions of cricket and the gentlemanly sport that it is, but that probably harks back to the more of an amateur era, more of a kind of a, well, certainly before the ultra professional era that we're in now, and it's high stakes. And we know that India, massive cricket country, huge support base. It's like, cricket over there is like football in the UK, so it's a massive sport in England as well. So there's pressure, and it's a test that England need to win the series, India need to win to draw the series. So both sides need to get a result here. So I have no problem with the situation we saw with Joe Root. Unusually for him, answering back to some sledging, but I think it's great. I think it's more entertaining. We're talking about it, and that's good for cricket, that we're talking about something that's happened on the pitch. Yes, it might not be the most savoury incident, but again, it's bringing people's eyeballs to the game, and it's entertaining.
The Times also focus on the cricket, Jack. Game on, really stressing how finely poised this fifth and final test is, and a picture there of Siraj there inspiring India's fight back. We've seen the initial four tests actually dominated quite a bit with the bat. This time around it's more about the bowlers, but how good is it overall to have a test series so finely balanced?
It's fantastic, and it's been like this all the way along. Some fascinating test matches all the way through the series, and I think the pace of this one, the way it's swinging either way. I mean, this morning was such a fantastic morning session for England. The way they came out and rattled through the tail of India quite so impressively and so quickly, and Duckett and Crawley really started putting a show on and started so quickly with the bat. And you think that they're going to absolutely fly past in the score that India have set and rack up a big lead and go from there and grab the series. But India really impressed with the ball, Siraj especially, and managed to swing it straight back round and back in their favour. And I think by the end of the day, it's again still very narrow and on a knife edge, but I think India have probably just got the edge over England. They again maybe took a bit of inspiration from Duckett and Crawley, the way they came out and started the third innings and really put their foot down and put some pressure back onto England to get going. So it is finely balanced. It's going on at quite an impressive pace, and for someone that's got a ticket for Monday, you sort of really hope that India manage to bed in tomorrow and drag it out as long as possible. But it doesn't look like that's something that's going to happen.
So Jack says the edge goes to India. Mark, do you go along with that, particularly when we consider such a key figure in this series for England, Chris Woakes, won't play any further part in it? That's a huge blow, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the question is now whether he's going to be fit for the Ashes. A dislocated shoulder is an injury that you don't recover quickly from, so that'll be the question mark. Now, obviously, England need to get a result in this test, but I do think Jack's got a problem on Monday. I don't think he'll be watching any cricket. I think the fact that we're on to India's second innings on day two suggests that Sunday might be the best hope you can get. But I think India have got the balance of favouring that with them. But it's been such a topsy-turvy test series that you just don't know. But I think India have the edge. But Saturday's going to be a lively day if the weather holds, and I think it could go into Sunday. But I think Monday's looking unlikely.
Yeah, a lively day ahead on Saturday as far as the rugby is concerned as well, Jack, as we go to the Express. Their main picture there, Maro Itoje, the Lions captain. Maro's mission, aiming to make it a clean sweep. Would you see this as a big achievement, Jack, if the Lions were to go and win this series 3-0, or given all the talk in the build-up that Australia were written off by many, does that achievement have to be put into a little bit of context?
It's something that's not been achieved for nearly a century, so of course it's a fantastic achievement. They'll go down in history as a Lions team that have done a clean sweep on tour. It's something that so few have managed to do, and it will probably, as the years go by, raise them up a level compared to some other teams. But I think from day one, when they landed on tour, the aim was a whitewash, a clean sweep, 3-0 against the Wallabies, and they've managed that so far. Obviously, the Wallabies I think they're ranked 6th in the world. They're not the force that previous Lions squads have faced. And really, I think Adam Hathaway, writing in The Sun tomorrow, is talking about this is the absolute minimum almost, given what what the Lions have been up against. There've been a few that have come in and really impressed and shown what they can do for them, and it will be a series to remember. There'll be some first-time, Lions Test winners, but yeah, I think 3-0 was the aim from the start, and if they don't go home with that now, they'll be fairly disappointed.
Mark, we've got about 30 seconds left for you to sum up how big an achievement this is, particularly given how Australia came back and played so well in that second test.
Yeah, I mean, to win any Lions series at all is an achievement. To win it 3-0 would be fantastic. But you have to say that Australia is definitely third in the pecking order behind the All Blacks and the Springboks in terms of tours. They're the ones that the Lions tend not to win. They've had many more successes in Australia over the years than New Zealand and South Africa. So the next one's in New Zealand. I think that is the big test. But a 3-0 win is a great achievement. You can't knock it. So that'd be a fantastic return from the Lions.
Mark, Jack, thank you very much indeed for your insights on Back Pages tonight. It'd be really interesting to see what happens as far as the Lions is concerned. Of course, you can follow it live in the morning on Sky Sports The Lions. Now, if you missed any of the show, there is another chance to see Back Pages tonight at hour. And the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can join us again on Monday night when our guests will be the Independent's Miguel Delaney and Jason Burt from The Telegraph. Do join us then.